Hey, Jason Baker today, and I am actually coming to you live from the new studio of Ryan Nor Lawn Care. Here working with him today, doing me a big favor. I want to talk about my big summer trip this year, 2023. I went up to Isle Royale National Park, and I was supposed to be going for 9 days and 8 nights. Once I got into my trip, however, it ended up being 7 days and 6 nights, so a little bit shorter than I planned. Before I get into that trip, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things I learned and some things I maybe would have changed. One of the big things is to go out and test your gear before you get started on any kind of through hike or major hike that you might go on. Actually going out and hiking around with your pack and getting that finally adjusted to your body, getting your tent up and down a few times, making sure that you have that as consistent as you can, makes things a lot easier. Testing out your sleeping bag, going through the gear that you actually are going to be using so that you're not carrying a bunch of extra weight around with you. Would be some of the big suggestions I would have. Also, once you're on trail, really listening to your body is going to become very important. But really, if your body is telling you, I'm thirsty, I need something to drink, making sure that you actually take time to take a drink. Checking to make sure that your mouth isn't getting dry. If you're sweating, make sure that you don't stop sweating, because all those are signs of dehydration, that your body's not getting enough. And just really listening to what your body needs. If your body's telling you that you need to stop and take a rest, take that opportunity to stop and take a rest. It doesn't mean you're a weak hiker. It just means that is what your body needs. And it's really important just to listen to what it's telling you. The next thing is Mountain House meals. Mountain House meals are a freeze-dried meal option. I know a lot of people say, well, they're a lot of garbage for what you get, and it's a lot of weight for what you get. None of the meals that I took were over half a pound. I'm dealing with 4 to 5 ounces for each meal, and for me, being at the possibility of 9 nights, I planned 10 meals with me. So if you think about that, that's under 4 pounds for all of the food I took. And they're really good hot meals, really good quality. We're going to do a fancy cutaway now to show exactly how you would prepare one of those meals. So here I just wanted to take a minute to show the Mountain House adventure meals that I was eating. This is what I had every night for dinner. That orange sleeve is what holds everything together. I've got my Tokes brand cook pot here with 2 lighters just for some redundancy in case one were to break down. I've got here my little BTS cook stove. It's got those 3 legs that you flip over and lock into place. Fuel adjustment gets flipped down. In the very bottom, I had my Gas 1 blended fuel. That BTS stove just screws right into the center post of that gas can. Get it on there nice and tight. Turn that gas off just to make sure while I get my lighter ready. Get that gas turned on. And use my lighter to get things started. Completely adjustable flame, so you'll see I adjust that flame. Get my cook pot right on top of that stove. I've got my water pre-measured here. You'll see really easy to follow directions on the back. It says for this recipe I need to add 1.5 cups of water. Here I've pre-measured my water, but while I was out camping I just used a water bottle and filled it up to the marked lines in the inside of the pot. Makes it really easy to measure so you know exactly what you're working with. Get that moved out of the way so I can get my meal opened up. Today I'm making the lasagna with meat sauce. You'll see as I tear across to open up the meal, I kind of wrap it over itself. This made it really easy to match up the two sides. So you had a pretty decently clean rip across the top. Inside is that desiccant packet. Of course, you do not want to eat that. It's completely safe in there. You just, like I said, don't want to eat that. I did have a little snafu one night. I did put my boiling water in there and get it all made, and I got to the end and realized it was still in there. However, looking at the directions, they say right on the directions that even if you cook it in there, just take that packet out before you eat it, and everything will still be fine. You can see I turned that flame up a little bit to get the water boiling a little bit quicker. Get my Tokes brand spoon ready to go, so I'm ready to mix everything up when the water is ready. And here the water's boiling. Just a couple minutes later, I turn that flame off. Use the little orange pack sack that it comes in as a little hot pad to grab those handles, because being a titanium pot, everything gets heated up. And all you do is pour that water directly into the package, and then I'll use that Tokes brand titanium spoon to get everything mixed up. Nice and light spoon, and I'll just make sure everything's pulled up from the bottom and mixed really thoroughly. I get kind of aggressive and kind of bang things around a lot just to make sure that all the dried sauce that's on the meat and the noodles gets mixed in well. Pulling it up from the bottom. There we go. Trying to knock all that dried on sauce off the stuff. All I have to do then now is zip up my package, and it just soaks. Again, nice easy directions on the back. Tell you that for this first soak, you're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. And here it's been 5 minutes. Again, I just kind of bang things around in there, stir it up again really well. You can see it's thickened up quite a bit since I first dumped the water in. I'm going to zip it closed, let it soak one more time. This time it's going to soak just for 4 minutes. Again, these easy to follow directions are right on the back of the package. While it's working, I'll take my cook pot apart. I unscrew that little BTS stove. Yep, there's my gas one, premium blended fuel. I'm going to put there's the post in the middle where you screwed the stove right onto. I'm going to fold down that stove. The 3 legs just come unlocked really easily. They flip down, adjust the fuel adjustment, flip it up, out of the way, and everything goes right back into that pot. So I'm going to put the red protective cap back on top of the fuel, keep any dust and dirt out of the top of the fuel can. My BTS stove is going to go back in, both of my lighters, and then the lid goes back on. Everything packs in there really nicely. I put all that back in the little stuff sack and pull the drawstring, and that's ready to go for my next meal, all cleaned up. And it's been 4 minutes, so I open it back up, give it another quick stir. You can see just how much it's thickened up, and you're ready to enjoy. Tasty meal. Now, I did take with me 4 different options. I took the lasagna with meat sauce, which you saw there in that video. I took the fettuccine alfredo with chicken, which was my personal favorite. I took biscuits and gravy, and I took spaghetti with meat sauce. The only thing I would say is the spaghetti with meat sauce is a little bit on the spicy side, so for me, that one will probably stay home next time, just so that I don't run into any kind of stomach issues along the way. Hiking styles. When you think about hiking, I used to be the type of hiker, and if you watched when I went out west on my trip through Amtrak, really my hiking style was, it's not really necessarily about the destination, it's more about living as you go, about the journey. And that's kind of the mindset that I took when I went into this hike as well. However, I would say day 2 or 3, I really stopped that mindset, and it really did go to, it is about the destination, because I had a certain amount of days and I needed to get there in that certain amount of time. So it was just I didn't take as many pictures as I have in the past just because it got down to the nitty-gritty and I had to put in 8-mile days and I had to make sure that I was getting to the next point just to make sure that I was getting to water and to make sure that I was able to stay on schedule. Mosquitoes. When you go north in the United States, just plan for mosquitoes. I took a product with me that was an all-natural product, DEET free, and that was a huge mistake. I really wish I would have taken something like a Deep Woods Off with 100% DEET, something that was really going to protect me. I went the all-natural route just because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to shower most days, maybe washing off at the most. My mindset was, the DEET products leave kind of a sticky residue on your body, and getting in and out of a tent and a sleeping bag with a sticky body just didn't sound wonderful to me, which is why I went with the all-natural route. However, it really wasn't worth it. I ended up hiking in pants, which if you followed me on, again, that trip I did out west on Amtrak, you'll know that pants are not something I generally wear. I'm almost always in shorts. So I was in pants, both for the mosquitoes and just to get through the trail. And also, I did end up wearing a mosquito head net, which I was really glad I took. It was, at times, it was kind of hard to see through, but much more of a benefit to wear it and keep those mosquitoes off of my face and my neck was much better. And the last thing I really want to talk about is water rationing. When you leave camp, you're most likely, if you're in a through hiking situation, when you leave camp, you're most likely going to be carrying with you the water that you need all day. There are many places where, yes, you might be able to stop and filter more during your trip throughout the day. However, that does take extra time, and it'll just depend on where you are and what you're doing. So for me, it was hiking with 3 liters of water every day. I'm a person who does drink a lot of water, so that was difficult at times for me, but just to manage that, you've got I had 3 liters of water, and that was all I was going to have for the day. So just making sure that, yes, I could have chugged a liter of water right away after my first hour of hiking. Really just thinking, okay, I can do half a liter, and that's going to leave me 2.5 liters still for the rest of the day. So that was the last big thing I wanted to talk about. Now we'll get into the details of my day-to-day out on trail. So for my 2022 big national park adventure, I decided to go to Isle Royale up in the middle of Lake Superior, right up on the border of Canada. I took off out on a ferry out of Grand Portage, Minnesota, and then took that ferry all the way around the island over to Rock Harbor on the east side. That was about an 8-hour boat ride. I got off in Rock Harbor and got all registered, got my backcountry camping permit, and I left Rock Harbor on the Rock Harbor Trail and hiked that first day for 3 miles to 3 Mile Campground. Stayed overnight there, and the next day I hiked from 3 Mile Campground to Daisy Farm Campground. That was still along the Rock Harbor Trail. And that second day was only a 4.5-mile day. And then on my third day, I hiked from Daisy Farm to West Chicken Bone Lake. That would have been up the Daisy Farm Trail and getting on to the Greenstone Ridge Trail. And that was an 8-mile day. The next day, I went from West Chicken Bone Lake to Hatchet Lake, and that was an 8-mile hike. Hatchet Lake, the one thing I will say, had some really nasty tasting water. As I filtered everything and tasted it, it was just not good tasting. And that next day, I hiked from Hatchet Lake to South Desor, and that was a 6-mile day. The day after that, I was supposed to hike from South Desor Campground to Island Mine Campground. However, when I was talking to some people that had come out of Island Mine Campground from the night before, they let me know that there was hardly any water there. So I ended up making the decision to, instead of going to spend the night at Island Mine and then the next day go on to Washington Creek, I decided to go all the way from Hatchet Lake Campground to Washington Creek Campground. So that ended up what was supposed to be a 5.5 mile day to an 11.5 mile day. It was a pretty tough day. Luckily, I had my topographical map and could see that most of that hike was going to be downhill, which really helped add to my decision to end up doing that. And then my final day, I hiked from Washington Creek into Wendigo, and that is the settlement on the far west end of the island. Got on the ferry there again and traveled back to Grand Portage, Minnesota, which was only a 2-hour ferry ride.